The Razer Blade 15 was already the world's smallest gaming laptop. Now, making it even smaller in the Razer Blade 14 is, on one hand, a really exciting proposition, and on the other hand, I had some serious concerns going into this review. So let's talk about it. This is Luke with Digital Trends, and I'm really excited to talk about the new Razer Blade 14. It's a laptop I've been anticipating for a very long time, especially since the Razer Blade 15 has been one of my favorite gaming laptops for years now, and because this new 14-inch model comes with a Ryzen 5000 processor. But more on that in a second. What I want to know now, if you have the choice between this and the 15-inch Razer Blade, which would you go with? Leave me a comment down below, and while you're there, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. As you may have seen in other videos, we're trying to push towards that 1 million subscriber count before the end of the year, so hey, do us a favor and get subscribed to the channel and help us get one step closer. When it comes to the design, the Razer Blade 14 really feels like it does the impossible. It looks nearly identical to the Razer Blade 15, with its all black aluminum exterior with the green snake logo on the lid. There's little in the way of big vents or gaudy design elements. It's that same minimalist gaming laptop with amazing build quality that it always has been. And there's a reason why people call this the MacBook of gaming laptops. The primary change with the Razer Blade 14, of course, is the size of the screen. And it fits into this new trend of 14-inch gaming laptops that have been coming out lately, such as the ROG Zephyrus G14 or the Predator Triton 300 SE. This actually isn't the first Razer Blade 14, interestingly enough. There was a model way back in 2013. But obviously this model is slightly upgraded since then. But with a smaller screen also comes an overall smaller footprint, which is why I came into this review, like I said up top, a little uneasy about this laptop's ability to keep the components cool enough. The Razer Blade 14 is the thinnest 14-inch gaming laptop and the overall smallest in volume, just 0.66 inches thick and 3.9 pounds. That makes it an insanely portable gaming laptop, especially when you consider how powerful this thing is. It also makes for a great just normal laptop because of its size. Of course, Razer also makes the Razer Blade Stealth 13 and the Razer Book 13 if you really want that Razer style without all the gaming power. But the Razer Blade 14 really does feel like the laptop in the lineup that can do it all without any major sacrifices on either portability and design or on performance. Ever since this thing was announced, that was the promise. And I'm happy to say the Razer Blade 14 delivers on that promise, for the most part. First off, the Razer Blade 14 matches what is offered by the 15-inch model in terms of the screen. It is a 16:9 1440p IPS display with a 165 Hz refresh rate. That's high resolution and high refresh rate, which of course is the best of both worlds. And the image quality here is fantastic too. Really great color saturation, hitting 90% of Adobe RGB, which is basically unheard of for a gaming laptop. Now, I do wish this looked a bit more like the Razer Book 13 with its 16:10 screen and tiny bottom bezel, but it's hard to complain when a screen looks quite this good in terms of the image quality. When it comes right down to it though, the gaming performance and the thermals are really what count here. And in some ways, it's crazy to say, but the Razer Blade 14 is more powerful than the 15 in some certain tests. That's because of the processor inside, which is the AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX. On raw performance alone, this is the king of gaming laptop processors right now, and it finally has a home in the Razer lineup, which feels like an important moment for AMD. And look, I know Cinebench isn't the be-all, end-all of processor performance, but it's still crazy to me that putting this Ryzen chip in here makes the Razer Blade 14 blow the Razer Blade 15 out of the water in that multi-core benchmark. So yes, just a benchmark, but it results in some pretty impressive content creation performance. And paired with that RTX 30 series graphics card, it'll make you very happy. Speaking of graphics, my configuration came with the RTX 3070, and it's still kind of mind-blowing, but you can even drop an RTX 3080 in here if you want. The 3060 is the base model option, which is still gonna be pretty impressive, but in other laptops I've tested, there is a big jump in power between the 3060 and the 3070. Either way, you're getting a full 100 watts of power to the GPU, which is, again, why I was a little worried about temperatures. But I'll just say this, I think Razer really managed to pull it off. You really get good gaming performance even in 1440p and I never saw GPU temperatures rise over 87 degrees Celsius. Now, that's not exactly what I'd call cool, but for a laptop of this size and with this much power, I'm really impressed. How do they do it? Well, there's a massive vapor chamber in here that covers just about everything. And it's supposedly even larger than in the 15-inch model. And there are some new fans in here too, each with 88.1 millimeter fan blades. Of course, having that huge vapor chamber does mean that you can't go in and swap out components like the RAM, but it does ensure that the performance and the thermals that actually make the Razer Blade 14 an excellent gaming laptop are all included. So how good is the gaming? Well, most games I tested hit at least 60 frames per second at 1440p at max settings, and that includes Fortnite, Battlefield 5, and Civilization 6. Battlefield 5 performance was particularly noteworthy at 78 frames per second, which even beats out the much chunkier Lenovo Legion 5 Pro, which is a thick 16-inch laptop that I've tested that also comes with the RTX 3070. Now, on the whole, that laptop does perform better, it gets better frame rates, especially in Fortnite where it was as much as 18% faster. So better airflow in a thicker chassis, that's always gonna mean better temperatures and ultimately better performance. But the Razer Blade 14 isn't as far behind as you might think. Makes you really wonder why we don't see higher end graphics options in laptops like that Zephyrus G14. Now, there were a couple of heavier titles that I tested that do give the Razer Blade 14 a run for its money. Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Cyberpunk 2077 both couldn't quite get up to 60 frames per second in 1440p. It gets there in 1080p though, and in Cyberpunk in particular, you just wanna make sure that you're using DLSS for all it's worth to get over 60 frames per second, especially if you turn on those ray tracing effects. Now, surface temperatures, that's kind of another story, because the Razer Blade gaming laptops are kind of infamous for being hot, primarily because there's just not a lot of ventilation happening here. You have some vents along the hinge for the vapor chamber, and then some right over the fans on the back, but you sacrifice a lot of air circulation by not poking holes all over this chassis. And the Razer Blade 14 is no different than previous blades in this regard. It can get really hot in certain key spots, but the palm rests are really what bother me the most and kind of make it stand out from other gaming laptops that I've tested. You're always gonna get hot spots near the display, but the Razer Blade 14's palm rests, they like to get nice and toasty, which can be uncomfortable, and let's be honest, it can get sweaty. If you're at home and you're in for a long gaming session, you'll probably find yourself wanting to dock it and use an external keyboard and mouse, and hey, that's not a bad way to go anyways, especially since the Razer Blade 14 has plenty of ports, including 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C, and even HDMI 2.1. But when you're on the go, those surface temperatures, they can be an annoyance, and it's certainly a downside to the Razer Blade 14 that has to be mentioned. Now, everything else is kind of as you'd expect on a Razer Blade. The keyboard and touchpad are both great. The per key RGB backlighting is as customizable as it gets, as an insane 15 levels of brightness control. And Razer even throws in some nice touches like the Windows Hello IR camera and some pretty decent speakers. They're upward firing and are THX certified, which basically just means THX helped test them and make sure they don't do things like distort at high volume. But the result is a pretty decent set of speakers for watching videos or listening to music. But here's the really cool thing about the Razer Blade 14, and it's the reason why most people should probably get this instead of the 15-inch model. It's $500 cheaper for an almost identical configuration. You'll get almost as good performance, better battery life by over 3 hours in my testing, and those same components like the 16 gigabytes of dual channel RAM and a full terabyte SSD. Now, there are plenty of cheaper gaming laptops out there, that has to be said, and they're just as powerful. Just check out the all AMD ROG Strix G15, for example. But obviously, none of those other laptops have the look and feel of the Razer Blade 14, which in my book, combined with the performance, still makes it one of the very best gaming laptops you can buy in 2021. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. I am pretty pumped about this Razer Blade 14, obviously, but I'm curious what you all think. If maybe there's another gaming laptop that's out there right now or coming out soon that you are more interested in, maybe something a little bit cheaper that has just as much performance, let me know in the comments below. And hey, if you are thinking about picking up the Razer Blade 14, make sure to use the link that we have in the description box.